What's up, guys? It's your commish with the Gentlemens Club WK5 recap. Man, what a crazy week. It's been a crazy year, actually, regarding injuries. Starting off with Spencer Ware and DJ going down. Then the week before last, we had Dalvin Cook, we had Julio Jones, we had Chris Carson go down. And this last week, the entire Giants team went down. It was nuts. And then today, find out Adrian Peterson's coming to the Cardinals, trying to breathe in some hope to the desert. So we'll see what happens there. The waiver wire should be very active this upcoming week. But let's jump into some recaps. First recap I want to go over was yours truly versus WK5. WK5 comes up and edges the undefeated team out on 134.6 to 118.4. Despite an abysmal showing from Gurley, who had only 5 points, he comes up with the W. Leonard Fournette continues to carry his team, and he's super consistent. He landed 34 points this last week. Reached out to Michael Wyckoff for some post-game interview, find out if he had something to say to the Din Tribune, and he spoke to the news reporter and said, I quote, "I thought my competitor was gracious and humble as he was when he was undefeated. Also glad to overcome some poor performances with Fuller and Fournette having a big game. Looking forward to more of the same next week. Hashtag waiver wire." He also said, also glad Lumen is in the lead for the dirty. So we'll leave that and let that get to the next chapter as we recap here further. So that was the quote. Next matchup we got going on is Mikey T versus Omar. This is probably the biggest shit talking feast back and forth ever created. Super excited to see it, and Omar barely edges out Mikey T 119.1 to 117.6. Close matchup. Omar does come away with the W. What would have been the matchup if we had players like Brandon Marshall, Diggs, and Clay not getting injured? Would have been an interesting game, but Omar coming up to the 3-2 mark, so great to see that happening. Mikey T also 3-2. So moving on, next matchup we had was Kevin versus Reggie. This was a crazy little matchup. 133 points to 99.3. All going to W to Kevin Moore. Great job, Kevin. Good timing for Kevin and his players. He had Melvin Gordon go off with 35 points, along with a little mini resurgence from Cam Newton. We'll see what happens there. 29 points from big old Newton. It could have been far worse if for Reggie if Kevin started McKinnon, who sat on his bench, had a really good game as well. Tough to call that out, but McKinnon was there. Speaking of awful, we can't let Reggie escape the under 100 club, the only player this week to achieve the under 100 club. So Matt Richardson, congratulations to you. It's an honor to see you in that ring. This is your second time this year, week 1 and then this week, week 5. So we'll see what happens here. But it was hell bye week for Matt. That is to his credit. He had Julio, who is questionable on bye, Jordan Reed, CJ Anderson, and Jamison Crowder all on buys. So tough week for Matt. Let's see if he can rebound next week. Next matchup, Costas versus Cage. 133.4 to 116.6. The winner goes to Costas. I gotta tell you, Costas handed Cage his 4th loss in a row. You heard that right. 4 losses in a row. There's one better. We'll talk about that later. But 4 losses in a row. Costas looking good with Deshaun Watson scoring over 40 points. He's running that tandem that I have with Nuke and Watson doubling up on TDs. Nuke gave him 27 points this last week. Pretty good outing for him. What's crazy was Costas didn't even pay attention to Gronk being out and still won. He left Gronkowski in there, scoring him 0 points. So that was crazy. Cage, your wide receiver 1 and 2 are suspect at best. Your best receiver was Hogan, scoring you over 21 points this last week. So you got some work to do there, my friend. Moving on to the next matchup. This one was probably my favorite matchup of the week. It came down to the wire Monday Night Football. Lumen versus Hofstetter. Tight game all the way through Monday Night Football, until a man by the name of Kyle Rudolph comes through. Kyle Rudolph scores Hofstetter 16.5 points and gives Hofstetter the W. Lumen, I sure as hell was hoping for you to win. I would have loved to have seen Hofstetter 3-2 versus 4-1, being tied with me this week. So thank you, Lumen, for doing absolutely nothing. And speaking of which, you also have 5 losses in a row, leading you to an 0-5 record right now. To your credit, one of your best outings this week at 140 points. So hopefully you can rebound next week. Next week's going to be the battle for the last place trophy. We got Cage on one hand versus Lumen on the other. It will determine who will be ultimately last place for the time being, at least. 0-5 for Lumen, 1-5 for Cage. We'll see what happens. I'm going to be interested to see the outcome of that matchup. Last one of the week for week 5 was Mallardo versus Gunn. Oh man, 115-4 to Gunn's 125. Bye week hell for both teams. Jim put up a valiant effort with Rogers, Pierre Garçon, and Jaguars D actually going off. I have him in another league, so pretty crazy there. But Gunn has his own great performances with Antonio Brown, Devontae Adams, and tight end waiver pickup Austin Safarian Jenkins, giving him some really good points there, edging out the win. So congratulations there to Mr. Justin Gunn. I'm going to backtrack for a minute and go back to some post-game interviews that I was able to get this year. We stopped to Stephen Hofstetter, and he says, you know, he wanted to, he thought he was going to lose. Happy surprise. He thought he had the second most points for against Mr. Lunan, so that always sucks, but he was happy to be on top. He loved that happy ending. We'll go over to Omar. Omar talked about, you know, he had a great competitor, a great opponent. It was a good game, great team effort all around by his team. That's what he was able to say. And Mr. Costas probably gave me one of the funniest quotes of the evening. He goes, "Garbage time is the best time." He said, "Cage was strong though." I don't know about that last statement, if he truly meant it or not, Cage, but we'll let everyone read into that. And then Kevin Moore goes, "I didn't even need Sammy Watkins to play. Tell Reggie to do as many push-ups as he lost by." Reggie, looking forward to a video for that. So we'll see if you can do that. And I think that's all the quotes I got for the evening. Justin Gunn, let's see here. Glad I won. Got lucky against Jim with his injuries, but a W is a W. Very humble, very gracious there by Mr. Gunn. Glad to win a tough week. And he says, now he's coming for you, Hoff. So that was the last quote of the evening. Moving on to next week, we got about 8 weeks left, guys. I can't believe it. We got the standings so far. Hoff and myself are tied for first at 4-1. Then we got Costas, Gunn, Wyckoff, Omar, and Mikey T at 3-2. Jim, Reggie, and Kevin are both 2-3. And as you guys heard before, the battle for last place is happening. Cage is 1-4. Lumen is 0-5. We'll see what happens next week with that matchup. This last week's bonus was for the largest margin win, and that goes to Mr. Kevin Moore. Congratulations, Kevin. Got a 20 spot coming your way. Next week's bonus is going to be the highest scoring D. Too bad, Jim. You didn't have the Jaguars during that bonus. You would have won that. We'll see who comes up on top. Other than that, man, hopefully we can all mitigate bye weeks and injuries coming up. We got some crazy stuff happening on the waiver wire last week. We had Latavius Murray picked up by Justin Gunn for $36. If you guys remember, the price was set way before that in week 2 with Tariq Cohen being picked up by Omar for $75. So looks like running backs on the waiver wire are set fairly high. So we'll see what happens this upcoming with AP on the waiver wire. He is available. Other than that, that's your commish with your week 5 recap. Peace out, guys, and have a great week.